So now that I'm asking, have you ever heard of FIRE movement? No, what's that meant to be? FIRE movement stands for Financial Independence Retire Early, and it's built on a platform of frugality and saving and investment in the hopes of actually retiring early. So what, you just sip cocktails on the beach all day? Not quite, but let's actually talk more about it. Nathan here, welcome to the YouTube channel, and in this video, we are going to be talking about FIRE, which actually stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. So be sure to gently smack the like button, and we know your time's valuable, so be sure to watch this video faster. Let's get into it. So the FIRE movement is typically a journey towards retiring earlier than what your traditional budget or retirement plans would typically allow. And essentially, based on our super, we'd actually be retiring at a ripe old age of 65 years old. But by following the FIRE journey and actually saving and investing, becoming a lot more frugal, you can actually expect to retire much earlier. By focusing a lot more on your investments and your savings from a young age, most people on this journey find themselves retiring between the ages of 30 and 40, which is actually roughly around 20 to 30 years before the typical and traditional retirement age.
Sounds like a good idea.
Now, I'm not a financial advisor, and what's coming out of my mouth is not professional advice. So please do your own research, understand based on your own circumstances whether this is actually for you. This journey and this movement is becoming increasingly popular, with a lot of articles, a lot of major news networks actually covering it and covering people who have found the time to retire earlier than expected. They've even got a subreddit solely focused to the FIRE movement. So early retirement does sound pretty amazing, but at the same time, it's important to actually go through the number of factors associated to the FIRE journey, and also understanding what your FIRE number is gonna be. Your FIRE number is gonna be the estimated target of your net wealth required to sustain your retirement until you can actually access any of your retirement funds. So if you decide to actually retire around the age of 40, that means you have 25 years and you need a bank of wealth.
I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second.
To actually sustain that 25 years until you can access your super. So for the people who are looking into FIRE, most of them actually prefer high liquid assets, which are actually assets that can be withdrawn and taken back into money immediately or almost immediately, which essentially would actually look at a low risk, high yield index fund or ETFs, depending on where you want to buy. Now, the factors that you want to consider when you actually want to look into this journey really comes down to its pros and cons. So we're going to go through them. So for the pros of FIRE, you actually get to put control of time back into your own hands. You also get to maximize the compound interest on your investment. Since you're frugal and you're actually saving a lot more money, you actually learn to live more in a minimalistic lifestyle, and you actually spend a lot less in terms of materialistic expenses. And overall, you actually live a life with a lot less stress because you know that you've currently got the amount that you need to retire. So there's no real stresses in terms of money because you've mapped this out and you know what you're looking forward to. So moving from the pros to the cons, and the cons of FIRE actually come down to the unpredictability of the future. You really don't know what the market's going to be doing. So on the time that you decide to retire, could be a correction, could be a crash, and it could actually delay your FIRE journey. The other cons is that it requires consistent planning because you need to look ahead 20-25 years to know when you're actually deciding to retire to when you need to get to, which actually then takes me to the next one, which you may find it limiting to depending on what you need. And this actually does come back to the planning. And lastly, it may not be for you, but you won't know that until you've gone through the journey itself. So taking both the pros and cons into account, it's important to know what you really want in life. The FIRE movement itself, it really stems down to extreme frugality and saving and investing and maximizing those specifically. But at the same time, I wouldn't look at it in terms of a cookie cutter method that's designed specifically for every single person. Once again, everyone is unique, and this is the reason why over the time, it's actually split into a bunch of different methods, which we're going to go into them now. So the first one is traditional FIRE, and the objective of this is actually to accumulate enough income generating assets until it gets to a point where it can actually take over and reach a level where it can cover your current living expenses. Most people who actually follow this traditional method follow the 4% rule, which just means that you're going to be taking 4% out of your high liquid assets every single year until retirement. So based on 25 years of retiring early, it means you need 25 times your yearly annual expenses. From there, gives you the option to then retire early. So knowing that you currently have enough money to last 25 years at the 4% rule to reach the age of 65. So the next one is lean FIRE, and pretty much is very similar to traditional FIRE, but it's done on a much tighter budget. So if $40,000 is described as the annual living expenses on traditional, then with the lean, you'd be living on $25,000 to $30,000, which actually then allows you to retire either much earlier or you need a lot less money when it comes to retiring itself. This one is actually not for most people because it then decides that you need to live a much more minimalistic lifestyle or you need to reduce your budget a lot more.
Help me, I'm poor. No.
Coast FIRE is the next one, and this one involves a lot more planning and understanding how much you then need from an early age to invest real early to the point where compound interest then builds your assets that allows you to actually retire much earlier. So if you started investing when you were 20 years old, putting a specific amount in to the point where you're 28 or 30 years old, you can then not even have to put any more money into your investments, knowing that compound interest is going to go into effect and really work its magic, knowing that 10 years has already been through the process. So then at that point, you no longer need to work as much because you're only needing to work to cover your initial living expenses rather than actually saving a lot more to cover all of your savings and investing all the way up to retirement. Second to last is one that's rising up in popularity, and that one is Barista FIRE. And Barista FIRE is a way that allows you to then skip the whole point of working full time. Really comes down to those that really do enjoy their job or actually want another job that gives them a lot more flexibility, gives a lot more perks and a lot more freedom overall. This is actually also an ideal method for those that want to try out FIRE and see if it really is something for them. Not everyone's actually built for retirement and retiring at such an early age. Some people really just need to get around and move. And others actually use this method to then go part-time on their job so that they can explore different types of passions or side hustles that they've always wanted to do. Fat FIRE is the very last one, and if lean FIRE was actually making a tighter budget, wouldn't you think that fat FIRE would be the opposite? So fat FIRE is actually a method of retiring early, but it's really built for those who have higher incomes or higher costs of living. So if the traditional method requires you for around $40,000 of living expenses per year, then fat FIRE could be $80,000 to $100,000 per year.
I'm really rich.
This is basically FIRE on steroids and really is reserved for those who are high income earners or just want to retire with a little bit more luxury involved. So now that you know that there's a movement based on frugality, you know you're not alone, and it's time to actually start planning whether this part is something that you would want to do. The most important thing is actually to make sure that you're committing with a purpose in mind that goes way beyond your actual hatred of your day job and can actually feel the whole of fulfillment that retirement can actually bring. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions regarding the FIRE movement or types of information that I can recommend for you. I've also left a link in the description below. Go into the actual subreddit of the FIRE movement itself and you can actually start reading in terms of other people's journeys and what they've done in terms of being extremely frugal and what they've done in terms of saving and investment for the long term. So make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel where I post weekly, and click the notification bell to know exactly when that is. And I'll leave you there. Ciao for now.